God bless everyone. Today, I will share the powerful testimony of Takeshi, a man who devoted his entire life to the way of the sensei, rooted in his beliefs, only to ultimately turn his heart to the path of Jesus. Takeshi's story reveals an astonishing, chilling encounter, one that he claims took him beyond the edge of this world, deep into a realm of darkness, where he found himself face to face with none other than Bruce Lee. This journey changed everything for him. Now, I'm going to read Takeshi's letter just as he wrote it, and together, we'll uncover the sins he confronted, the revelations he faced, and the light of Jesus that emerged in this unlikely place. I was born and raised on a quiet, small island in Okinawa, where every day was filled with the steady rhythms of the sea and the hum of cicadas under the warm sun. My father, a disciplined and honorable man, was deeply rooted in Shinto Buddhism and held our family heritage in high regard. He dedicated his life to running a traditional karate dojo, where he poured his entire soul into teaching the ancient ways. From a young age, my path was carved before me. I learned early that in our family, martial arts were not merely techniques or movements but a sacred way of life, a path to spiritual elevation. The dojo was a place of reverence, and I, as his only son, was to carry on this legacy with unwavering commitment. At 22, with my father's blessing, I left the shores of Okinawa for America, determined to share our revered Okinawan martial arts with the world. The journey was not easy. In a new country, I faced cultural barriers and a life that felt so far removed from the honor-bound traditions I grew up with. Yet, I soon found my place. I established myself as a sensei and dedicated my teachings to the art of meditation and the purification of the soul. Over time, I built a community of students who looked to me for guidance, not only in martial arts, but in life itself. I taught them to seek balance within, to align their bodies and spirits, and to look inward for strength, a pursuit I believed wholeheartedly would bring true peace and clarity. For nearly 50 years, I stood by these teachings with a fierce loyalty, fully devoted to the principles my father instilled in me. My life was one of discipline, ritual, and faith in the sacred path we had followed for generations. Every movement, every breath, felt like it held the weight of my ancestors. But even as I taught with all the conviction within me, an unsettling feeling lingered in the shadows of my mind, a faint whisper that perhaps I hadn't truly found the peace I preached. This question haunted me in rare, quiet moments, only to fade as I immersed myself back into the life I'd built. But little did I know, this question was the start of a journey I would soon be unable to ignore, a journey that would confront me with truths I never saw coming. One afternoon, I was in the dojo, demonstrating a move I had taught countless times before. My students watched intently as I prepared to show them the precision behind Seikintsuki, a seemingly simple punch, but one requiring absolute focus. I drew in a deep breath, centered my energy, and threw the punch with full force, my fist slicing through the air. But in that exact moment, an intense, sharp pain ripped through my chest, stealing the air from my lungs and halting my movements. It felt as if a vice had clamped down on my heart, squeezing every bit of life from me. My knees buckled, my vision blurred, and though I fought to stay upright, my body refused. I crumbled to the ground, feeling the world slip further and further away, my students' voices fainting into a distant, unreachable echo. As I lay there, the familiar world I knew seemed to unravel and fade, dissolving into something else entirely. I felt as though I were sinking, descending through endless layers of darkness that grew thicker, more suffocating, with each passing second. It was not just darkness in the way one might close their eyes to sleep. This was a living, breathing force, wrapping around me like an impenetrable shroud. It felt as though it were reaching into my very soul, squeezing out every remnant of warmth and light. I tried to call out, to fight against it, but there was nothing to hold on to, just the vast, consuming black that seemed to echo with a hollow silence. With every heartbeat, I felt myself being pulled deeper into this oppressive void, my last links to the world slipping away. I realized with a dreadful certainty that I had entered a place far beyond the bounds of life and death as I had known them. The silence around me wasn't just an absence of sound, it was a profound void, as if every hope, every dream, and every regret lay trapped in this space, waiting to consume anyone who dared enter. My body felt heavy, my spirit even heavier, and a cold fear gripped me like never before. Yet, even in that fear, a strange sensation stirred within me, something I couldn't yet understand but knew I would soon have to face head-on. And as that dark weight pressed down on me, I could feel it. Something was coming. Something that would make me confront everything I'd held true. As I stumbled through the thick, suffocating darkness, each step felt as though it weighed a lifetime. I was moving, but the blackness was alive, pressing against me with an unimaginable weight, like an ocean trying to pull me under. There was no light to guide me, no sound to reassure me. Instead, an overwhelming sense of regret and abandonment grew, seeping into my soul, pulling at buried doubts I had long ignored. Every regret, every missed opportunity for peace I had overlooked in my search for discipline and perfection, hung heavy around me. I felt stripped, alone, as if my life's path had been reduced to a maze of mistakes with no escape. Suddenly, in the midst of this despair, a familiar figure emerged from the void, a silhouette that I recognized instantly. It was Akira, my old friend and trusted companion in martial arts, a man I had once seen as a brother. But the Akira standing before me was different. His face was torn, his eyes hollow, and a deep sorrow radiated from him. "Takeshi," he began, his voice carrying both regret and weariness. He admitted the very thing I had never dared to question, that together we had led others down a path of false promises, chasing fame and glory, while ignoring the true light that could have given us purpose. He spoke of how we had deceived ourselves and our students, convincing them that combat and strength alone would bring peace. I felt a chill grip my heart. The man I had trusted, had walked beside for years, was now a reflection of the path I feared I might have been following all along. Then, as I tried to process Akira's words, another figure appeared, a figure I could hardly believe. Standing before me, unmistakable in his stature and presence, was Bruce Lee himself. His face was solemn, his expression weighed with sadness. He looked directly into my eyes, and in a voice rough with regret, he shared his own story of mistakes. He spoke of a life spent in pursuit of power, independence, and fame, how he had relied on his own strength, forsaking the peace that could have been his through faith. Fame, he told me, had once seemed like everything, a promise of freedom and purpose, but it had only left his soul barren and empty. He had turned his back on the light, thinking he could find his own way. Now, seeing him here, his words struck me like a painful truth I could no longer ignore. I felt a desperate urge to understand more, to uncover what lay beyond these encounters, for each revelation was leading me closer to something I could feel but could not yet see, a light, perhaps, that would change everything. The air around me was thick and suffocating, every breath a struggle against an unseen weight pressing down on my chest. This darkness was unlike anything I had ever encountered. It was alive, breathing, moving with a purpose that seemed to penetrate straight to my core. It was not just blackness. It was a hollow, oppressive void that echoed with an eerie silence. I could feel the shadows layering around me, cold and sharp, as if they had substance, pressing in closer with each step. It was a silence filled not with peace, but with a haunting emptiness, a silence that seemed to mock my every belief, my every notion of strength. My mind, my heart, everything was laid bare here, and I could feel my soul quivering under its weight, as though the darkness itself were testing the very foundation of who I was. As I moved further into this desolate landscape, ghostly fragments of memories began to surface before me. Scattered across the ground were broken swords, shattered armor, and symbols from my past life as a sensei. All faded, all covered in a fine layer of dust, as though abandoned for an eternity. I recognized them immediately. Each one was a relic of battles fought, lessons taught, and victories won. Yet here, stripped of meaning and power, they felt like hollow echoes of lives lived in pursuit of empty goals. They were remnants of a time when I had believed discipline and strength were enough to carry me through, enough to fill the void within me. Now, in this haunting environment, they felt like reminders of every path I had taken without truly understanding its cost. The weight of my past decisions bore down on me, each symbol a painful reminder of souls I had once influenced, now lost and wandering in this place as echoes of what might have been. The further I ventured, the more faces emerged from the shadows, faces of students, friends, and even rivals, their expressions frozen in anguish, their eyes hollow and searching. These weren't just memories. They were reminders of every lesson I had taught, every principle I had believed in, now twisted into symbols of what I had failed to give. Each face seemed to whisper an accusation, a question, an unspoken truth I had been too proud to hear. I could feel something building within me, a tension, a need to confront what lay at the root of this place, of this darkness. But I sensed that deeper truths awaited, truths I would have to face if I were ever to escape this place. When I finally opened my eyes, I found myself lying on the cold, familiar floor of my dojo, surrounded by worried faces, yet the weight of what I had seen lingered heavily within me. I could hear my students calling my name, their voices trembling with concern, but it all felt distant, unreal. The visions I had just experienced, encounters with figures from my past, the suffocating darkness, the haunting silence, all clung to me, as real as the air in my lungs. Had I truly glimpsed hell? Was it some kind of warning? Or perhaps just the unraveling of a mind worn down by years of struggle? I could not say, but the experience left a void within me, an ache that resonated far deeper than anything physical, pulling at a place within my soul that I had never acknowledged. In the days that followed, I tried to return to my normal routine, immersing myself in teaching, in meditation, in the rituals I had practiced for years, hoping they would drown out the lingering unease. But the silence that had haunted me in that place now found its way into every quiet moment, each breath. I began to feel hollow, as though the principles I had once held with such certainty were no longer enough. One day, as I walked aimlessly through the city, my gaze fell upon a small, unassuming church tucked away on a quiet street. Drawn by an impulse I couldn't explain, I stepped inside. The soft light filtering through the stained glass, the quietness of the pews, the simplicity of it all. It was as though the air itself was inviting me to pause, to listen. There, on a table, lay an open Bible. For reasons beyond my understanding, I felt compelled to pick it up, to read the words that had guided countless souls toward something greater. As I read, a strange warmth began to fill the void within me, each line resonating with a clarity I had never felt before. That night, as I drifted into sleep, my mind filled with scripture, I found myself enveloped in a light unlike any I had ever seen. In this dream, I felt the presence of Jesus, his voice calm and unwavering, speaking words that pierced through every doubt, every fear. He spoke of peace, of forgiveness, of a love that sought no reward. Each verse he shared echoed within me, softening the hardened edges of my spirit. The teachings that had once seemed so distant, so foreign, now felt like answers to questions I had carried my entire life. It was as though he were holding a mirror to my soul, revealing a path I had long ignored, a light that had been waiting for me to embrace it. When I awoke, the sense of peace lingered, wrapping around me like a comforting embrace. I returned to the church, feeling a need to kneel, to surrender the burdens I had carried for so long. As I prayed, I laid my life bare before God, confessing the pride, the mistakes, the hollow pursuits that had once driven me. I felt my heart lighten with each word, the weight lifting as if something within me were finally being set free. In that quiet space, surrounded by God's love, I felt a profound sense of liberation, as though every pain, every regret had been washed away. I knew then that my life would never be the same, that this new path was calling me toward something greater, something that I could now sense just beyond my reach, waiting for me to take the first step. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Now I invite you to share your own thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Have you ever felt a powerful moment of change, a calling, or even a glimpse into something beyond? I'd love to hear your reflections and insights. Let's continue this conversation together.